In my opinion, and I know the whole country is behind you as well. In my opinion, you deserve a pay rise, but not just a small pay rise. It's got to be substantial. It's substantial enough so you can live on it. So it's a big thank you from me, and I know the public are behind you, and I hope they get behind the whole campaign, because you really do deserve it. And there's a lot of people out there that might not. And I'm not going to slam down the MPs, because we have got some good MPs. But you are key workers. Key workers are keeping this country going, and you deserve a pay rise. So in my opinion, and it is a big thank you from me. Now I'm connected with the Debenhams protest, and we'll be there later on today, highlighting what is going on in the world. And these masks are not great, are they? But this is a downward spiral that we're going on. So the government could step in, could give you a pay rise. Debenhams, they could give their staff redundancy pay, but choosing not to. This is just blatant what the Tories will do. So we take to the streets and we say it loud and clear. We're going to stand here and we're going to say no. We want, and we need to put our feet in the ground and stand firm on this, because believe me, Nye Bevan will be turning in his grave right now. Absolutely. He'd be fuming. This was set up for free to the point of use for the whole country. And what is it doing? We're turning this NHS, and let's be fair, everybody is jealous around the world about our NHS, but we're not funding it. We're not looking after the people who are keeping the essential services going. And for me, it's got to stop. They need to make sure that they're number one, looking after you, because you are the front line. The facilities need to be top notch. They need to be pushing forward with the NHS, because this is the pride of Britain. And the pride of Britain is you. And you're looking after us, and it's a big thank you from me, and I'll leave it there. We'll keep it nice and short and sweet, but give yourself a big round of applause, because you deserve it. You deserve it. Stand firm, and whether it is 15%, 20%, 5%, you deserve a substantial pay rise for the work that you've done. Thank you very much.
Hello, sorry I'm a bit nervous. I just wanted to share something that I've seen. I've been a nurse for 15 years, working in the sector that I'm in, and when I was working, it was a previous job, there were 6 nurses working in the locality I worked in. I've moved north since then, but I keep in touch with my old colleagues, and they have told me there's only 1 nurse working in the place that I used to work 15 years ago. This is happening across the whole country. People get tired, they get weary, they get fed up with the pay, they get fed up with the conditions, they leave. And the managers rub their hands and they say, oh excellent, we've saved some money. We only need to put 1 nurse there where we had 2. And we're shrinking all the time. And as we do this, the NHS becomes a little bit weaker. And as we get a little bit weaker, the government, they rub their hands and they go, excellent, we can put a private service in here and they can do the job. And I've seen figures. I know that private services do not do as good because they cream off profits. And when they cream off profits, the quality of care is less. So I'm standing here for patients. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? I don't know how to follow that. That nurse has made fantastic points that are why we're all here. But I'm Sally, I'm an NHS worker, I'm a Unison steward, and I'm really, really angry. People who we're representing at work are being forced into unpaid leave while they look after the kids who've been forced to isolate by being sent back to schools that are unsafe. The NHS workers we're understaffed, we're overworked, and we're underpaid. And we demand 15% now. But I see the poster about, Boris, act for us. Boris Johnson's never going to act for us. Tories are never going to act for us. And when we talk about key workers, let's remember who these key workers are. Key workers is actually the working class that's been continuing to support this country and keep it all going throughout COVID. It's the working class. Don't be fooled by key workers. Thank you. The TUC needs to stand up now. The only way we're going to get this is through industrial action. We all know that, and we're all ready for it, but we need our unions to lead us. We need to renationalise the NHS. There's so many privatised areas that the last speaker was just talking about. They are profiteering throughout this. When they were looking for the labs, it was because most of them have been sold off. So all those private owners were doing deals with the government. That's why it took so long for all this testing to start, because they were doing their deals in the background of how much they were going to get paid. The NHS could have done all that testing. So our workers, our members have been working tirelessly to support communities and the country. We demand 15% for them now, if not more. That'll only just pay us for what we've lost since the austerity. I think we're being very kind just asking for 15%. But now is the time to strike. Strike, I don't necessarily mean that. I mean, strike while the iron's hot. The public supports us. Let's go for it, 15%. Stick together and we will win. Thank you. And also, parting shot, never, ever, ever trust the Tories with the NHS.
Sorry, I'm really nervous about this. So I haven't heard anything. I've just been asked to just say a few things. I've been a nurse for 10 years and I've worked in numerous trusts. My previous trust, I would say, was a lot more understaffed than the one that I work at now. I work at the Christie, but I used to work at Leeds Teaching Hospital. So at this moment in time at my trust, I feel like they have been very good in supporting us. However, there is support that we can give, but staff are just struggling. We need this pay rise. People are working extra hours, doing bank shifts, and not only for the money, but because they don't want to let their colleagues down. So, as a sister, when I'm in charge on a shift, I have relatives ringing up, crying on the phone, asking if they can come in to visit their loved ones. Obviously, it's a cancer hospital, and we have people dying. And it's so upsetting when they ring and ask why they can't come and sit with their loved ones. And it's just so unnatural as a nurse to then decline that offer of having your loved ones there by your bedside as you die. I've had patients choosing between their wife and dad who to have them by their bedside, and it's just heartbreaking. There's going to be long-term effects from this, and as healthcare workers, we are going to have to deal with that. For example, in mental health, people are going to have PTSD. And if the service isn't there because it's been privatised and people can't afford, I'm not looking forward to that. A lot of my colleagues come to me for support, and I have to be resilient. I go home, I journal, I reflect to try and then go back and support my junior colleagues who have just come in as newly qualified, and now they're expected to work through a pandemic. We've had student nurses, as you know, their contract got cut halfway through, and we needed them. They were absolutely vital to the ward. We had a lot of patients who were being specialed one-to-one, and without them, I don't know, patients would just be falling here, there and everywhere because they'd have no one to watch them. Don't really know what else to say, so sorry, I haven't prepared anything.
Hi, so my name's Layla. I used to work at Debenhams in the Market Street store just down the road. What Debenhams did to us was absolutely appalling. There have been waves of redundancies that this company has made. They made 2,000 workers redundant in Ireland in April. Then they made 4,000 workers redundant in Britain across stores in May. And this was during the main part of the lockdown when everybody was locked in their homes, worried about loved ones, that's when people got text messages inviting them to a conference call the following day, and their jobs were gone. And this is what happened to me. So there was the latest round of job cuts was made just over a month ago. People were absolutely petrified. Lots of people were expecting actually to be called to return to go back to work. We'd all been sent an email just a few weeks before saying everything's fine, we're going to reopen the stores gradually and we'll call you back. And so when people in August were sent a text message saying please attend this conference call at 10 a.m. the following day, lots of people did actually want to believe that the company was going to call us back. What Debenhams actually did was break the law, because if any company wants to make more than 19 workers redundant within a 90-day period, they've got to, whether they're in an administration or not, they've got to follow legislation that's there in place to protect workers, and that means there has to be a consultation process. In my store, they made over 100 people redundant within that 90-day period, and so we should have had a 45-day consultation process during which we would have been paid, and during which we would have challenged, the business case for making job cuts at this time, when actually, we were on furlough, and so one of the options could have been to keep us on furlough until it was safe to reopen reopen the stores gradually and bring more staff back. They closed the restaurants and they closed the travel money departments and made workers redundant. But we knew that as time went on, they would reopen those departments. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. So the restaurants are now back open inside Debenhams, but they have rehired some of the staff that used to work there on 6-month contracts. So imagine people on 11 years service, 15 years service, and they're back working at Debenhams. I've been shocked to see in the last 3 days that Debenhams are now advertising for Christmas temps. So, and my colleagues in different stores have been told by managers, well, don't worry, you've been made redundant, but you can come back because we'll be rehiring for Christmas. It's an absolute insult. On the conference call that I was on when I was made redundant, there was over 65 people on that call. It's really difficult to make out what the store manager was saying. And some of us on that call had over 20 years service. A couple of people had 28 years service and 38 years service. I had worked in that store for 7 years. And what the store manager did was just say, in 3 days, your job is gone. You've got 3 days notice, and that's the end. We were not going to give you any redundancy pay. You have to apply to the government for that, and that's it. So it's been absolutely outrageous, but we've been protesting from day one. Within half an hour of us being made redundant here at the Manchester store, we'd staged a protest, and we haven't stopped. So we've got one later on today at 3 o'clock outside the store. Everyone is welcome to join us, because it's actually not just about the job cuts in Debenhams, and it's not even just about the job cuts in the retail sector. Actually, it's this period now where the furlough scheme is set to end at the end of October. Lots of companies are going to see this as an opportunity to make cost-cutting measures and cut jobs. And in fact, it doesn't even stop at the private sector. There's the public sector as well, where we think, and we have a good idea that job cuts are on the way, because local authorities and local councils have budgets that have meant they've had to make cuts. They're running out of money, and now there are going to be job cuts most likely on the way. It's absolutely shocking. This is Boris Johnson. This is directly attributable to Boris Johnson and his government. They put profits first. They put the concerns of millionaires first, and what happens to us, we're just collateral in that reopening of the economy and pumping profits back into the top of society, and we're not going to have it. I mean, if you look back at how long what life was like before the pandemic, we saw rising levels of homelessness. We saw, benefits being slashed, nurses and other workers having to use food banks in order to survive, and the mental health of young people spiralling downwards, the kind of circumstances that we were living in, job insecurity. All of that is returning times 100. And I think that we just can't stand for it. We need a fight back. We need trade unions to lead the fight back against job cuts and against cuts and the downgrading of terms and conditions. And we need trade union leaders to step up now and back workers and back a real fight back against this government and its agenda. So join us at 3 o'clock outside Debenhams. We need a fight back.
So I'm grateful for a platform to be heard, because I don't really feel like I've had one in 10 years of working in adult mental health. In a system with a lot of angry patients and a lot of angry people surviving universal credit, coming to our doors unhappy, and we're asked to try and placate them and make things easy, and we can't. And we're not paid, and we're not recognised for that work that we're doing. And I'm not just talking about lack of pay, I'm talking about years of underinvestment in training, in a computer that works, in an office that doesn't stink. How can you care for people if you're not being looked after yourself? Yeah? If tyres are being slashed, windows smashed, it's happening for a reason. And it's not just because of the welfare state, but it's because we're not looking after our staff. We're not caring for our society. And it comes back, doesn't actually save money. So we need to look after our staff in order to help them look after the people that they're supporting.
To the health workers, care workers, standing up to a government that is failing to deal with a pandemic, that's been failing to deal with an economic crisis for nearly a decade now, over a decade in fact. We've heard, I think, powerfully now from health workers, care workers, about the work they do, about the conditions they face, about how they continue to lead, and defend our communities in the face of a pandemic. We've heard about the inability of our government to stand up and to support them, and the continued attacks economically on their conditions. But I want to talk about a positive example, an example of a country, of a people who actually recognise the importance of healthcare workers. I want to talk about the island of Cuba, who during this pandemic have sent the Henry Reeve Specialist Medical Brigades to over 25 countries around the world, specifically just to deal with the pandemic in many countries that would otherwise struggle to face the pandemic and to support their communities. This includes countries like Italy, in fact, which is the first European country to receive a medical brigade from the socialist state of Cuba. But this doesn't just happen by chance, by accident. This happens because Cuba defends its healthcare workers, recognises the importance of properly funding its healthcare system, of properly training more workers, of properly training people to work in health and in the care sector. There's a campaign internationally to support the Henry Reeve Medical Brigade and to support their bid, to nominate them for the Nobel Peace Prize for their contribution to tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. This would be an important gesture in taking away from the, countering the lies and the propaganda of the capitalist countries of Boris Johnson's and Donald Trump's, of the Britons and the United States of this world, and actually recognising the achievements of a socialist country whose people stand together and are showing us an example, a different way of running the world, a way of running the world for the working class, not against them. There is growing international support, a growing campaign for the Henry Reeve Brigade, including people like Rage Against Machines' Tom Morello and other organisations from around the world. But there's also a ramping up of aggression against the island of Cuba, as there's a ramping up of aggression against the working classes in imperialist states like Britain and against countries like Cuba standing against the imperialist world. There's a campaign to attack attack Cuba's medical system, accusing medical brigades of so-called human trafficking. But this is a lie. Cuban medical workers, doctors, nurses, these people who participate in these brigades do so voluntarily because they recognise the importance, like all really healthcare workers I'm sure do, in standing up not just for their communities but in supporting communities around the world internationally and exporting these socialist principles. This ramping up of aggression is a key plank in Donald Trump's election strategy and a key plank in the imperialist strategy attacking people around the world in their time of economic crisis. I just want to finish with the words of the Cuban president, Miguel Díaz-Canel. He said, globally we are witnessing the confluence of a deep crisis as a consequence of the impact of COVID-19 and the definitive collapse of neoliberal, so-called capitalist paradigms defended by imperialism. We're seeing now that Cuba's public health response to COVID-19 has put the neoliberal paradigm, the capitalist country like Britain, to shame. It's shown us that not only do we need an end to the US blockade to get back to support this country of Cuba, the socialist revolution, to defend their example, but also because we need to look to the example of Cuba, of a socialist economy, of an economy and a country run by and for its working class. Because it is only in this sort of country, this sort of socialist and anti-imperialist example, that we can genuinely support our health workers, that we can genuinely defend our communities, build better lives for the people in this country, for the working classes. Not just pay rises, not just asking for 15%, but asking for an entirely better world. Thank you. Solidarity.
Hiya. So my first point is I just want to say thank you to the NHS. I sadly lost my granddad to COVID, and a year and a half ago lost my granddad to cancer, so of course we've used the NHS in this family. I had pancreatitis when I came back from a holiday, again I've used it. So you've all done a fantastic job, just proud of yourselves. I also want to say, just join a union, because without a union we can't get the voice any stronger. By having a voice, that is what we do. We need to be a family and pull this together. The NHS deserve this pay rise. It's no better time than to ask for it. This is when you need it.
My name's Emma Runswick. I'm a junior doctor in Bolton. What I'm about to, and also I'm on the BMA National Executive Committee. But what I'm about to say is not the opinion of my employer, nor is it of the opinion of my trade union yet. Hopefully, yet. Junior doctors, like most other NHS staff, nurses, cleaners, porters, midwives, radiographers, physios, occupational therapists, have been hammered in this deal by a multi-year pay deal. That is the reason that we have been excluded from a pay rise this year. And that deal was made by our trade unions. And the answer to the problem is to tackle this within our trade unions. The government, in response to the coronavirus pandemic, has done a lot of terrible things. But the latest thing that they are trying is to crack down on gatherings such as this, protests such as this. The one place that they can't crack down is in the workplaces where we are required. And therefore, that's the place where we have to get organised. It's now 4 years since junior doctors went on strike over our contracts. And I'm so happy to see that nursing staff, midwifery staff, all of the health allied staff in our hospitals and NHS, from social workers to porters, are now beginning to get a little bit organised and ask for what they fucking deserve. Because this isn't a COVID thing. This pay problem is not a COVID thing. This has been a degrading their pay, systematically degrading their conditions, attacking their pensions, attacking our workplaces. Enough is enough. We have finally shown to the whole country what we do. What we do when everything else stops. Who keeps this country going? It's us. It's working people. And if we're going to show our worth, we need to get organised in our workplaces, in our trade unions. We need to fight our union leaderships where they're not going to give us what we want. And we need to demand 15% is only the beginning of what we've already had taken away from us. We need to ask for better workplaces, proper PPE, proper pay, and if we need to take industrial action for that. I hope this movement continues to grow, and I hope you are a member of your trade union. If you're not, you should join, and then you should fight and organise within your workplaces. Thanks very much.
Oh, hello everyone. So from the looks of my appearance, you probably would have first thought maybe I was a mother, well-to-do, quite healthy person, whereas actually fact, appearances can be deceptive. I am without child, I'm on my own, I live in a crummy flat. I am training as a nursing associate through the apprenticeship scheme because I can't afford to go to university to do the nursing degree. However, I have worked for the NHS for over 10 years, originally with the ambulance service, and now I've got to where I want to be, in the hospitals, on the wards, helping patients, which is what I want to do. Unfortunately for me, I am also disabled, which is why I couldn't do the job that I wanted to do in the ambulances, so I've gone to the hospital. And unfortunately for me, I earn less than the Joseph Rowntree's Foundation's recommendation for a basic standard of living, which is £19,000 for a single person. I take home less than £16,000. Last year, I had to turn off the heating in my house, and I had to borrow food from my mother so that I didn't have to go to a food bank. This year, in March, I was unfortunate enough to actually contract COVID from the ward I was working on. I was one of 17 members of staff that contracted it from our ward. I've only just managed to recover last month enough to go back to work. Now, because of the amount of time I have been off work and I've had to take a break in my studies, yes, they've allowed me to come back to work, but I've now been demoted. So I'm no longer on a band 3 pay. I am going to be put on a band 1 pay. And now I am having to look at trying to find anywhere else to live, let alone food, heating, anything at all. My dignity is below basement level right now, but I'm not going to leave the NHS because it's my passion. I'm going to do everything I can to keep going, to qualify, and to actually make this a better NHS.
Sarah, maximum solidarity, and my position is we should abolish band 1 and band 2.
Thank you.
Today?
Why I'm here?
Yeah.
Well, I want to support the NHS workers, my friend. But I mean, it goes deeper than that, doesn't it? I mean, it's like with the 80% furlough, everybody's saying, oh, they're having it easy. They haven't cut rents by 20%. They haven't cut anything that you have to buy in the shops by 20%. But the NHS, I feel that the top of the unions missed a trick in the fact that everybody's out applauding for the NHS, but at that moment, they'd obviously done a deal a bit higher to not do anything at the time. Now, it's going to be more difficult for them.
So there's going more to come, or?
I would hope so. I would hope so. I would hope that people will start waking up and recognising that nothing they're doing is for health. It's all for keeping their economy going, the big business, private companies getting the testing. It's just being handed out to their bosses at the top, to their friends. So that's why I'm here, and I'll always be here.
Yeah, man. Cheers.
Okay.
Never trust a Tory with our NHS. 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 Fair pay. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Fair pay. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Fair pay. When do we want it? Now.
Okay, I think everybody, guys, that's a wrap. We are adjourned. We are officially adjourned. I will play some protest music as we disassemble.